afternoon, good evening, and late good evening to wherever you are starting to see us for this Giant Just Chat session. Today's session is about diets. Do they work? Thank you so much for joining us from across the world. I would like to take a second to stand in a solidarity with the people of Ukraine. Our thoughts and best wishes for them and the community out there to get peace within and throughout. So thank you again for joining us today. And this is our Chai and Just Chat session. This is our 5th year into Chai and Just Chat. I have my chai ready and it's hot and I'm going to enjoy, relax and learn from the panelists. I hope you do learn too. When COVID happened, the Chai and Just Chat moved from in-person to virtual session, which helps us get perspectives from across the world. So we have panelists from across the world joining us as well. And today it's not different. As I'm going to make the introductions, you'll realize where they are at this moment. But today's discussion is also on diets. Have you ever tried losing weight, following a diet plan? You focused on certain foods and then you had trouble sticking to it. If this is the story that has happened to you, or you keep hearing it from your colleagues and friends, this is definitely a session that you should watch to understand what works, what doesn't work. And I'm excited to learn myself. I'm going to do a quick introduction of our panelists today. I would like to start with Dr. Santosh Salonke. And the best part about Dr. Santosh is he and I were batchmates. I don't know if I should tell which year, but Santosh and I went to medical school together back in Karnataka in India. So it's so nice. I'm seeing him after almost 2 decades. So it feels good. I'm excited to have him here. He's also a consultant gastroenterologist at the National Health Service in the UK. He leads the inflammatory bowel disease. He's also an inflammatory bowel disease lead for NHS Forth Valley. He's also involved in teaching and training undergraduate students of Glasgow and Edinburgh University Medical Schools. His post-graduation also was a foundation program director between 2016 and 2021. He has been the lead for medical fellowship program at NHS Forth Valley. His hobby is for landscape photography. That's nice. I've heard photography is a hobby, Santosh, but I'm hearing first time like landscape photography. So you've defined your area of focus in your hobby. So that's really cool. And he was recently appointed as a clinical director for scheduled care in medicine in the NHS Forth Valley. So thank you for joining us, Santosh, today. Next, we have David Medansky. He's joining all the way from Phoenix, Arizona. And he has practiced family law in Phoenix until Arizona until 2004. He's also known as the overweight person's best friend. Yeah, so thank you, David. Many of us need you because he's leading the authority on how to lose weight without dieting, exercising, or counting calories. I'm waiting to hear about it more. David struggled with his own weight until July 2016 when he discovered that he was on track to have a fatal heart attack. During the next 4 months, he shed 50 pounds, almost 25% of his total body weight. But sometimes many people say when you're in others' shoes, you understand more about what's going on with others. So you take more personal care and your passion goes on into it to find the complete solution. So great job, David. You're also an author and we can't wait to hear more about your book. Alicia Carlson is a mom, wife, and 9-to-5er who puts her passion to work as a non-diet lifestyle coach. Can't wait to hear from you, Alicia. I love the hat. And she has an amazing approach around the concept of mindful eating. So I've always heard about mindful breathing. So Alicia, so it's good to know that there's a concept called mindful eating. So looking forward to hearing from you. Though your mission is to help women learn how to eat healthy and meet their fitness goals, I would also like to understand, do men fall into those teaching categories as well? So you do with zero dieting, that's your training program. Aside from ditching the diet, she also empowers women to make peace with their bodies long before they reach their goals, which is very, very, very much needed. So thank you, Alicia. for your service out there. Neander Selvin is an author of dieting book called Paleo Diet. He runs multiple health and exercise-based diet groups in Facebook and WhatsApp. He has written in popular magazines like Kumudam and Dinamani on health and wellness, which are famous, popular Tamil magazines back in India. Professionally, he's a professor of marketing at University of Wisconsin. He writes in Facebook on parenting, minimalism, paleo diet, and philosophy. And I don't know, Selvan, if you know that I'm also in your WhatsApp group. So, yes, so I keep getting all the messages, so thank you. I have to admit, I haven't been an avid follower of the diet yet, because I still need to know. So you guys have the basic person in me. I've not tried any diets really, so here you have to convince me which I should follow right after the session today, right? Okay. And then Dr. Risha Sarma is an Ayurvedic physician and naturopath. She's currently in Singapore. Did I get that right, Risha?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm working in Singapore still, but currently I'm in India.
Okay, sounds good. She has worked with patients within more than 30 countries, and she's also helped patients with their gut issues, hormonal issues, women's health and well-being, skin problems, and others. That reminded me. So Santosh, so is it okay to call you the gut doctor? They say go with your gut feeling. Yeah. So I'm just gonna make.
Call me what you like to call.
Okay, that's kind of you. So I want to start with Alicia, right? So Alicia, all these sessions, it takes time for me to prepare. I'm not just coming out there and asking you all questions. I have to decide what your background is, and then sort of make the flow. So it takes me like 3 or 4 days to completely sit on it and prepare and make exactly how I want it to come out. So today I decided, before I even hit the word diet and getting onto diet discussions, I wanted to talk about what is normal, like what is health, what is nutrition, and then I wanted to get on the diet, what works. So if that's okay with you, my first question for you, Alicia, is health. My question is, are you healthy? In what ways do people define health or healthy or unhealthy? And then if you also can tell us about who's the healthiest person you know.
So if I'm can you kind of rephrase that again? So what's
Yes.
the first part that
So
you
if you can say, if you can talk about, are you healthy?
am I personally healthy?
Yes.
I would like to think so, since this is part of what I do, is the exercise, the nutrition aspect. But I feel like healthy really does go beyond just what we're eating and just how many minutes we're exercising and the calorie burn. There is the mental aspect, of course, the emotional component of health, spiritual health, relational health. And so I think that sometimes that's where the concept of healthy gets a little bit sort of narrow focused, and we're just looking at one piece of the pie rather than really looking at somebody's overall health and well-being in the different areas of their lives. So for me, health is something that I'm working constantly to kind of find that balance of which area of my life maybe needs a little bit more attention, which area of my life feels like it's going pretty well, and I can kind of back off of that a little bit so that I can invest that energy and that time into that other specific area.
Very nice. Who's the healthiest person you know?
Oh my gosh, I don't really know. I mean, I come to mind, but that might be maybe not the best thing to say. So yeah, I don't know that I know like a healthiest person, because I think that it is a little bit individual to be able to,
Okay.
health I think looks different for everybody. So
Definitely, and that's what I wanted to get at. Each one defines their own health, probably whether they're healthy or not. It starts with oneself, right?
Mhm.
Yes. So, Selvan, my next question is for you. What things do you do that are good or bad for your health? It doesn't have to involve the diet specific, but even otherwise, what do you do that are good or bad for your health?
Yeah, apart from diet, the good thing I do is I constantly keep myself active. So one thing is my Apple Watch. So it gives me a ping for every 1 hour if I'm sitting. So I make a point to walk at least 500 steps in every hour. So I think that's a very important thing, because sitting is the new smoking, according to like a lot of people. I don't smoke, I don't drink alcohol, and I don't have drugs or other habits. So I think that is the primary thing. First thing is don't ruin your life. So I have not ruined my life. And apart from that, having a happy family, I think that's very, very important. Spending time with kids. So I think that is something that keeps me always young in mind. Spending a lot of time with your own young kids and family. So those three things, and like apart from that, I work out heavily. So, but again, since you mentioned not exercise and diet, so these are the things which keeps me happy.
Very, very nice said. I think I'm gonna use that strategy about walking 500 steps every hour. Something that we don't think, because I usually call my comfort space as the couch corner. So what are you doing? I'm working from my couch corner, and that's what I've been doing all these years, even before the COVID. So I found my comfort space, but I think I need to come out of that comfort space, and each one of us have to come out of some comfort space that we feel which is really getting into a sedentary lifestyle. So David, thank you so much, Selvin. My next question is for you, David. How do you think the health concerns of our generation differ from our parents to grandparents and our children?
Well, when I was growing up, if you went to McDonald's once a week or once every 2 weeks, that was a treat. Now it's available 24/7, and people go there for all their meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Our food is nutritionally deficient. It's about 30% less than what it was when our parents and grandparents were growing up. The other thing is, when I was growing up, soda was a treat. Now it's prevalent everywhere. And our bodies are 60 to 70% water, yet 75% of the US population is chronically dehydrated. And there's a direct correlation with people being overweight, because 72% of the US adult population is overweight, of which 42% are clinically obese. So people don't drink enough water. Sometimes when they think they're hungry, they're actually thirsty. And our bodies are water. It's not soda, diet soda, fruit juices, or fruit flavored beverages. And now there's a lot of artificial foods. It's manufactured foods, which means it's not made in nature, and it's also highly processed foods, where before people ate more whole foods, more real foods, as I call it. So that's one of the biggest differences.
So will I be right to say the trajectory is really going down as we are moving from generation to generation? Because from what you said, the generations before us went for more raw and natural and organic food, and our generations from our children's generations getting more into processed food. Did I get that right?
Correct, and it's more convenience also now. Before, you had to go to the grocery store, at least in the United States, and walk the shopping aisles and get your food. Then it became with the electric carts, where people were driving around the aisles, and now you don't even have to leave your home. You can have it delivered to your home. So we're getting less physically active. The other thing is, when I was looking through my yearbook, because a friend of mine was attending his 50th high school reunion, his kids noticed that there were no overweight or fat kids. And in my high school, when I graduated, maybe 2 kids were overweight, nothing like it is today. So if you look at what's going on today, kids are more overweight, they're less physically active, they're more into video games and watching TV um, than they are, going outside and playing. So yes, unless something changes soon, we're heading in the wrong direction.
Okay, thanks, David. Rishabh, my next question is for you. What kind of health advice have you gotten from your parents and others? I know you are the one who's giving the advice all the time out.
Yes, yes, yes. So, growing up, this is something that I discuss with most of my patients. Uh, Apart from the food aspect of losing weight, maintaining health, there are so many rituals that we saw our parents doing. In like, I can say for my generation, before that, the previous generations, what I saw growing up in India, we had a ritual of sleeping on time, hitting the bed on time. There was no late nighters. You're not supposed to watch TV at night. You're supposed to wake up early in the morning, because early to bed and early to rise is what is supposed to be healthy. And somewhere down the line, I think my generation onwards, most of us are missing this point. And I see very few people in my practice who would say they sleep at 10 p.m. at night or earlier, and they wake up on time and they have their 8 hours of sleep. those who do, actually there is a marked difference between the way they eat, the way they see food, the way they see and go about their lives. So I think those teachings, I know I was the culprit myself, having been through medical school. We've had all night studies and all those, and there was a point of time that I myself was used to sleeping, not before 1 a.m., because that is my relaxation time, or winding down, or whatever, Netflix, whatever. But ever since I've started going back to the traditional classical pattern of hitting our diurnal cycles and all of those things, uh, I think this is something that is the core of our lifestyle problems that we need to address apart from nutrition. So this is one thing that I tell most of my patients, that please fix your sleep routine. And this is something that used to happen as a natural lifestyle progression previously, as far as I can see, Indian population or Asian population that I've seen. And this is something that we really need to work on.
Okay, very well said, Risha. You'll be happy to know that my sleep time is 9:30. I don't know what happens to the world after 9:30, but I'm up by 3 a.m. 3 to 5, I can work the entire day's work. Yes. And has given me, I usually notice when I do that sleep at 9:30 and get up, I'm like fit to fly the next day. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you, Risha, for reaffirming that. Santi, the next question is for you. Describe what it means. I know Alicia touched on it a little bit earlier. Describe what it means to look healthy. How healthy do you look?
Yeah, Nazira, thank you for inviting me to this meeting. It is a privilege to share this platform with some of the experts in the field. So for me, it's a humbling experience. So thank you. Um, uh, to look to look healthy, um, it's being healthy is far more beyond how one looks or appears. It is how you feel internally is more important than how you look. And looks do have an impact on how you interact and what you gain out of society, and also uh, the way people perceive their body image does have an impact on how confident they feel in the way they interact. Yes, the appearances and the looks do have an impact, but what counts most is how internally you feel about your own appearance. And as long as you feel right about your appearance, I think that will be a healthy, a mark of health. Now, that necessarily may not be the may not have a positive impact on your physical health, and that's probably what we're going to be discussing, in the next hour or two. Um, but certainly, as long as you feel confident in the way you appear, I think that will be the biggest factor.
Okay, so as a physician, as a gastroenterologist, um, we were taught in our medical school that half the diagnosis should be done as the patient is walking in, right? So, do you base that on whether the person is fit, slim, thin, or overweight or obese? Do you?
Yeah. So in medical terms, yes, observation is a key part of how we assess the patients. There are different parts of patient assessment, and inspection is the first part. The moment the patient walks in, you are getting quite a lot of information um, by the appearance, by the way they walk. You're getting information about their gait, handshakes, eye contacts. There are lots of things that you gain information about a patient. And as a part of that, one of the factors is their body weight. Yes.
Okay, very well said. Thank you. The next set of questions is like a 20-second answer question, so you'll have to be quick about it. It's going to be back and forth, back and forth. Like I said, I wanted to change some of the ways I was moderating. So I'll start with David. Yeah. So, David, how often and what kinds of fast food do you eat? I don't want you to say no.
Oh no, I do. Maybe once a month, I'll stop at McDonald's and I'll get a breakfast sandwich, or we'll go to Carl's Jr. and get a breakfast sandwich. My wife and I go down to Rocky Point, Mexico, um, a couple of times a year, and so when we do, there's only that's the only place to stop. During our trip. So yeah, I'll do that. But other than that, maybe, oh gosh, we eat out, but not at fast food places. We go to good quality restaurants, and so there's my answer.
Okay. Do you feel some sort of guilt after going to a fast food restaurant, or that's okay?
No, it's okay, and I tell people not to beat themselves up. I'm not a purist, and it's very difficult to uh, be 100%. And the illustration I give is airplane is on autopilot. It's correcting 90% of the time, and so that's what I tell people is keep adjusting, keep correcting until you get to your goal or the lifestyle that you want, and then you have new routines, new habits that are formed.
Okay, great, David. Alicia, do you have any special strategies for eating well?
Yeah, I mean, I think along with just the mindful aspect of it, and this is, I think, kind of piggybacking off of what David said, for me, it really is about teaching habits, right? So it's like our brain thrives on routine. And I think, like Risha said, that ritual. And so if we can maybe invest a little bit of time and intention on that front end of developing habits that are going to support the lifestyle that we want, as soon as those become kind of ingrained and entrenched in our brain and those neural pathways, that it becomes so much easier to choose this versus that. So I would definitely say like the habit aspect is huge. So teaching just good habits and hygiene and behavior around food. But then I think also kind of addressing the emotional aspect as well, right? So it's like if somebody is constantly going towards something and choosing something, let's look at it from kind of the behavior aspect, but also what's maybe happening from an emotional aspect as well, because we know that we are emotional beings. And a lot of times we're turning to food, we're turning to alcohol, we're turning to work or all these other things to solve problems that really need to be addressed on an emotional level.
Very well said. Selvan, how much and what kind of processed foods do you eat? Please don't say no.
Yeah, processed food in the terms of if you mean like bread and other things, like maybe once or twice in a month, that too, like we make it at home. Like sometimes I'm teaching in the morning, so yeah, some bread. But again, I don't do it regularly. So
Okay, you're very disciplined among all of us, I think.
I don't know that because I don't know how others eat, but I try to eat healthy. So
Okay, very well said. Because I keep following you on the WhatsApp group, so that's why I'm sort of making that judgment. But Risha, to what extent do you eat a balanced diet?
Uh, I would say I cheat once a week at least, and but I do try to keep maintain the variety, the amount of fiber I am eating, the variety of fruits or vegetables I am eating. I try and rotate all those things so that I maximize my macros and micros in the best way possible. And it's not impossible to eat clean 100% of the time. You have to live your life. You have to enjoy your parties. You have to socialize, and food is much more than just macro, micro, mic, and it's a social aspect of being human. We connect on food with people and we connect on food for so many things. Like Alicia said, for emotional reasons, we sometimes there are behavioral disorders that lead us to obesity or bulimia, things like that. So yeah, I do eat my comfort foods, but
Okay.
yeah, I try to maintain the balance.
Okay, sounds good. So, Santi, which foods do you eat that are most and least nutritious? I know it's a tough question, but
Um, I'll be honest, I never look at the nutritional value. I don't calculate the calories. I do not measure how much of calories and proteins and carbs are going into me on a daily basis. What I do is I do enjoy the food that I eat, but I try to balance it out. And I do take my treats. I do eat junk, not on a daily basis. Um, Maybe once in a couple of weeks we might be out, and usually on the day we are running late to school and on the way we might pick up a breakfast from McDonald's drive-through, and we do eat restaurant foods. But I try to balance that out with lots of green vegetables, fruits on a regular basis. I try and avoid drinking sugar-rich carbonated drinks. Um, so yes, I try to keep a balance, but not in a I do not chase the numbers on a daily basis. What I do chase, and I maybe um, um, uh, don't, I probably am not very strict, and I lose the track sometimes, is what my weight is doing, but more importantly, how do I feel on a daily or a weekly basis.
Okay, thank you so much, Santi. We are still in the 20-second question and answers. And so, David, do you ever look at because Santi just said that, do you ever look at nutrition labels? If so, have they affected your consumption habits?
Yes, I read nutrition labels all the time. I do not buy the products, but I like to see what people are looking at, and most people read the nutrition fact panel wrong. They look at the calories, the proteins, the sodium, the sugar. What they fail to look at is the ingredients, which is the very small fine print. And as a lawyer, a former lawyer, I know you have to read the fine print. So that's what's important. So you need to know what you're putting into your body. And I agree with Dr. Santosh, that it's not about counting calories. And if you eat properly, you don't have to worry about the calories. And what I tell people is don't worry about the scale so much, worry about how your clothes fit. Because your clothes will either be getting tighter or they'll be getting looser, or they'll stay the same. So there's a lot of different ways you can measure it.
Okay, very well said. So, Alicia, do you take vitamins or dietary supplements, or do you recommend for others?
I do take some, but I think I'm always looking to kind of prioritize food over supplementation, and that's what I would advise for my clients as well. I think at least speaking from like a Western perspective, I think it is very much a cultural thing to, if I can take a pill for this, then I'm going to opt for the pill rather than having to do like the tough work of maybe changing my habits. But I think that there's so much that's lost when we're just looking at creating compounds and then putting them in a pill, putting them in a supplement. Whereas when you're cooking tomatoes, you add the garlic, you add the onion, there's this kind of synergy that starts to happen within the food. And then I think like Dr. Santosh said, it's also the experience of enjoying a meal with a family, with your family and having that experience. So for me, it's like, let's look at what's happening nutritionally. And then if we need to add some supplementation, then we do that kind of separate. So that's the approach that I take for myself. And that's also what I would advise for my clients as well.
Very nice. Risha, which foods I know I come back to Risha with these tough questions. Which foods do you eat that have a lot of salt, sugar, fat, or other potentially harmful ingredients?
So there's something that I eat regularly, right? I think most often when we eat outside, obviously we are picking up those kind of stuff, like be it fast food, junk food, or something overtly fried, pizzas, you can say. Or I'm not very fond of chips, or as in packaged, salty stuff. Naturally, not fond of them, thank God. But yeah, I think yeah, some Indian, chaats maybe. That is the most spicy part. Yes, that I eat that has a lot of salt and lots of unnecessary spices that we shouldn't be consuming every day. But yeah, that is a treat.
Very nice, thank you. Selvan, the final 20-second question is for you. How have your eating habits changed over time?
A lot. For the first 40 years of my life, I was a vegetarian. I won't even eat eggs. So last 10 years, I gone completely in the opposite direction. So I become, now I can't eat a meal without meat in it. So that's one major change. And I'm like mostly, I started eating home cooked food, like 95% I'm eating home cooked food. So that's the recent changes in last 10 years.
Wow, isn't that amazing that how we change over time? So I, for no reason, I stopped eating goat and lamb meat last year, and I'm stopped eating chicken this year for no reason. I just decided I want to do it. So I don't know if it's called any diet, but I don't know if I'm heading into the vegetarian field, but I can eat seafood. So after I listen to all of you, I'll figure out what is this that I'm trying to do. It's internally coming out, not reading anywhere, stop this, stop there. I just want to stop it. So I did it. I don't know if it is good, but I want to hear from all of you in the later part, and I'll decide how I want to take this further. So let's go into the meat part of the discussion, right? The core part of the discussion. So Santi, more than 40% at least in the worldwide general population have tried some diet or other, and they want to lose weight. And the first thing they do is, I want to lose weight, so the only thing they're thinking is, what should I stop eating? Right? How much weight? So should we set weight as a set point? Because but then we are not taking into the genetic consideration or the hormonal regulatory imbalance consideration. So we just take weight as the main consideration for reducing, going on a diet. Is that the right way, or the conventional way still of going about to be healthy, or even considering diet? I think what I'm ultimately trying to ask is weight the set point?
So slightly looking at it slightly from a different angle, when you're trying to deal with a bigger problem or a wider scale problem, you need parameters that are easy to measure, and easy to calibrate, and easy to define outcomes. And so from that perspective, weight is probably a simple and easy way to measure and keep an eye on. For a general public, you don't want to make it too complex. You want it for them to interpret their efforts and the outcomes in an easy way. So weight is perhaps a simple and easy way to do that. There are, of course, much more structured, well accepted, simplified versions of the weight. For example, the BMI, body mass index, widely accepted. There are different ways of measuring the body's weight and impact, but BMI is one of the simple and widely accepted measures, where you compare the body's weight across the person's height. Okay, so there's a calculation that you need to do, and people don't need to worry about actually calculating. There are lots of health apps, there are lots of health websites. BMI calculator, just put your height and weight and it calculates for you. Not only does it calculate, it kind of gives you a recommendation of what your ideal body weight should be. One caveat though is, if you're of an Asian background, the BMI that is maybe well accepted for perhaps a white person is higher compared to an Asian. In other words, the Asian population tends to fall in the risk category or high risk category, even at a slightly lower BMI. There is another simpler version, a waist circumference, and people can simply put the measuring tape around their waist, just above the top of their hip bone, or called iliac crest. And for men, if you're 40 and if your waist goes over 40 inches, that's a bad sign. For women, 35 and above, it's an amber sign. So there are simpler ways of measuring things. There are a variety of ways of measuring. Weight is one of the simple measures. BMI certainly widely accepted.
Very well said. Thank you, Santosh. Following up on that, David, so I read somewhere about our body is sort of, they were comparing the analogy about with a rubber band, right? So once we keep stretching the rubber band, it still comes back to its original shape, which is also, they were referring it to as natural weight. So no matter what we do, we all have preset natural weight that nature has given us. So no matter how we try, we reduce, but then we come back to that. Is that something that's is that true? I was just surprised they had said that, but I wanted to ask, is there something, every person has something called a natural weight within the comfort that they are supposed to be?
Wow, I'm not sure about that, to be honest. I hadn't heard that before. I know a lot of people will use the excuse that they have bad genes or that it's hereditary, that they're overweight, when that's not true. A lot of it's based on their lifestyle and their eating habits. And you can't always judge a person by their weight, if they're healthy or not. Just because a person is thin doesn't mean they're healthy. There could be other underlying issues. They could be bulimic. They could be, a drug addict. They can, be a heavy smoker. There's a lot of other issues, and I respectfully disagree with Dr. Santosh about the BMI, because the BMI doesn't distinguish between a couch potato and a professional athlete. So a lot of people ask, well, what's my ideal weight? And the answer is there is no ideal weight because it differs for each person. What you should look at is at your waistline. And what Dr. Oz advises, rule of thumb, is your waistline should be about 1/2 of your height. So if you go by that, if you're, 5 feet 8 inches like I am, then my waistline should be 34 inches or lower. It's just a rule of thumb, a general idea of what you can do. And again, BMI was developed by Adolf Quitman. He never did it for individuals. It was more for the general public and society. So you have to be careful with that. And also be careful with some of the weight charts, because those were never done by medical doctors. They were done by the life insurance companies. And they kept changing them to make them a little bit lower and adjusting them because they wanted to reduce their risk for insurance people. So weight is a very personal issue, and there are certain ranges you need to be in, but there's a lot of other things that you have to take into consideration.
Okay, Alicia, I do see your hand raised, but just one follow-up question for David. David, the measurements that you're talking about, apart from BMI, is that being highly published and made known in the medical system?
I'm not sure, to be honest, whether it's being widely known. I heard it from Dr. Oz doing research. I also follow a lot of what Dan Buettner teaches in the Blue Zones. And a lot of those people, it's lifestyle. And so that's where I like to advocate is it's not so much of a diet, which we'll get into discussion later, but more of the lifestyle and your eating habits. And it's more than just your eating habits. Physical activity, as Dr. Salan or Stelfen said, other aspects of it, socializing, if you're eating alone or eating with a family or colleagues. So a lot goes into it for overall health, as Alicia and Risha said.
Okay, sounds great. Alicia, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Kind of expanding a little bit on the set point theory, there is increasing evidence or research out there that is supporting the idea that each of us have kind of this individual natural weight range that could vary, 5 to 20 pounds. So it is kind of a big scale. The caveat to that is that it's much easier for your weight to go up, for that range to kind of creep upwards rather than trending, in the downward direction. So I think, I think if we can kind of release sort of the mental and emotional attachment to the number on the scale, and like David said, really instead focus the energy and the attention on the lifestyle habits, the behaviors, your mental, your emotional health, that's going to probably be a better use of your energy and your time versus obsessing and stressing out over the scale number. And then I think, to kind of expand on the BMI weight conversation, you can have people that are metabolically healthy that fall in the obese category. It has nothing to do with their weight. It has everything to do with what's happening on the inside. So from a cellular level, from the metabolic health, these people are incredibly healthy. They just don't have the appearance of being healthy. And so they're going to be given the advice to maybe lose weight in order to get healthy. Whereas the flip can happen, and you can have somebody that appears healthy, but when you pull their blood panel and you look and you see what's kind of happening inside, they're actually not healthy. They could have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, their metabolism is shot. So I think that's one of the biggest disservices of the BMI, of utilizing weight loss or weight as kind of this overall metric of health, is that it really is just one simple snapshot, and it's not taking into consideration somebody's lifestyle, somebody's genetic factors, but then also just that internal health as well. So I think definitely the BMI and looking at weight falls incredibly short in terms of how we're actually able to tell whether or not somebody's healthy.
And that's the point I wanted to get at earlier. Just because the person is, slim and fit, like what you mentioned, the blood panel might not come out to be exactly on a healthy level. So so probably appearance of a person is the wrong, uh, probably is not the right correct way to understand whether they're healthy or not. Go ahead, Alicia.
Well, and I mean, and so I'm speaking from a little bit of personal experience in this, in that I did figure competitions about 11 years ago. So by appearance standard, I looked incredibly healthy because I was lean, I was muscular, I was working out, I was eating super clean, but my body fat percentage was 11%, hovered between 9 and 11%, which is incredibly low for women. I was not having a period. My hormones were all out of whack. And so I think that we've kind of gone away, like we've gone way extreme in the sense of like what looks healthy, but for women is actually not super healthy. So for me, you know, my body is much happier at about a 25-pound increase of weight as to where I was there. You know, I'm sitting more body fat percentage, but having much, you know, like overall my body is functioning a lot better. So again, I think too, we just have to kind of think critically about the appearance of health and maybe like what is behind kind of promoting certain physical ideals, and you know, follow the money, and are there people that profit off of people trying to look a certain way? And I think you're going to find a resounding yes. So
Great. Okay. Selvan, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm not a medical doctor, but I do my research in marketing. So we are biased towards objective criteria. Like I think we want to like measure percentages, how people have benefited. So I think BMI, using your weight scale, that's very like tempting, and that's okay to a certain extent. But objective measures like that have their own limitation. For example, in marketing, we measure religiosity by a 3-item scale. So, do you worship? I mean, do you believe in God? Do you go to church regularly? And if America becomes a religious country, it will be so. Like we ask 3 questions and we measure it. I mean, this in no way reflects a person's religiosity. That's a very complicated construct. So BMI and weight, I think they are the same thing. Like you take one aspect and then like you try to measure a person's health completely with it. That's not going to work out. So, and I think at like the entire United States, I think the average age is around 43. So, people above 40, weight should be their least concern. So, they should be more concerned about muscle mass, in particular, like osteoporosis. And after 40, every year you are losing 1% of your muscle mass. So, which means that when you turn 70 or 75, like literally the 30% of your muscle mass is gone. So, I think that is very dangerous for seniors to be losing their muscle mass. So, like mindless weight loss and simply looking at the scale, you lose lot of muscle. When you lose weight, you lose lot of muscle, then you lose lot of fat. So, I think that should be stressed. And BMI and weight, I think, are like, I mean, I agree they are useful to a certain extent, but over stressing on them can be very dangerous.
Okay, sounds good, Selvan. I know Santosh, you've raised your hand, so I'll let you speak, and then I have a question for you, Risha, right after that. Go ahead, Santi.
Yeah, I'm delighted with this discussion because that's exactly the challenge with the BMI. Sorry, I just want to take my hand down. That's exactly the problem with the BMI. I think David, Alicia, and Narendra have kind of alluded to them and discussed it very beautifully, but they verbalized it much more better than what I could ever. But that's a challenge with BMI. But the good thing about BMI, though, is in a day-to-day practice when you're dealing with a big number of patient cohort, as I do, it is, and when you try to measure the impact on the physical health, and by physical health I mean what might be happening internally, and we might discuss about that, in the latter part of this meeting. BMI, body weight, waist circumference, these are all the measures that are easy, objective, and measurable ways of predicting the outcome from the diseases. And it's not one that fits everyone. Everyone is different. And I think that I'm not going to repeat it, but I think David and Alicia have already described that very beautifully, and that's precisely the challenge with BMI.
Okay, very well said. Thank you, Santi. Arisha, my question is for you, and maybe Alicia might want to, chime in on this one as well. So let's talk about weight gain and women, right? Usually, when we talk about women and their weight gain, we measure and we start diagnosing and testing separately and differently. Can you talk about some of the reasons of weight gain in women? I think particularly what I wanted you to discuss was like about hormonal imbalance and the estrogen, thyroid deficiency, insulin resistance. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So, women go through so many processes right from, the first that milestone that we reach is puberty. And then the adulthood and then pregnancies and then menopause. So all this cycle has our hormones, jumping up and down naturally. And on top of that, lifestyle choices, the type of food we eat, how we are sleeping, how we are dealing with our relationships, our stress, day-to-day stress, plus our genetic tendencies towards our our reactions to the world, our reactions to people. We are all unique in all of these things, and women have to naturally go through these cycles. So that is why PCOS, a condition like PCOD is becoming such a big problem with women nowadays. Like,
Can you elaborate on that, please? On the
yes.
many
So
might not know the acronym.
yeah, so it is polycystic ovarian syndrome. So basically, what happens is that because of a number of factors, women start the we have normal ovaries with normal eggs forming in both of the ovaries in women, and when for some reason these eggs don't mature and then they stop and they turn into cysts, and problems with menses, weight gain, stress, hormonal issues. I mean, obviously because of the PCOS and uh, hirsutism, facial hair, and a lot of other infertility. In as it advances and is left unmanaged, it leads to infertility as well. So I think this is one of the biggest challenge that women, especially in early 20s, mid 20s, are facing, and acne problems, skin problems, a lot of these things are happening nowadays. So it's very important that women, and what I have seen is that most of my patients who are dealing with this issue have problems with the way they're eating, the way they're sleeping, and the way they are managing their stress. So it a lot of studies say that it is not a treatable disease, but I beg to differ. I think it's a very, very manageable problem, and you just have to reconnect with your body first of all. I think people have forgotten to connect with themselves, to know what your body's unique needs are, what kind of food suits you, what kind of food does not suit you. And you don't have to go for fat diets, or superfoods and all that. You have to first find out what works for your body and what doesn't work for your body. And also this there is this a big myth that if you are young you can eat anything and you can digest anything, you can sleep anyway. It's not true. It's not true at all. Even kids have to follow certain I wouldn't set them into specific boundaries of discipline, but there are certain rules that you cannot just broke. It is vital for your body, and it is vital for your body to sleep on time, eat on time, and things like that. So I think we are somehow missing the point there, and because of that, a lot of hormonal issues are creeping in, and women are reaching infertile, menopause at 30, 31, which is bizarre. And even before they're getting married, they're thinking about marriage. They're reaching, menopause, and even think before they are even thinking about having babies at some point in their life, they're reaching menopause. So it's really, really frightening, and it's actually a cause of big concern, and a lot of psychological counseling goes into this, because our hormonal problems start from, I think I consider hormonal problems as 50% it is coming from your brain and the way you are dealing with your life. And so we have to go into a lot of details of how childhood trauma, or abuses, things like that, psychological aspect of it, before we come to the nutritional and all of those things.
Very
So
well said.
there's a very deep work needed for all of this.
Definitely.
Environmental exposure, I mean, it's a whole, whole whole new world when you talk to your patient about it.
Definitely. And Alicia is going to come to you along to chime in on this as well, because I'm sure you have more women customers and clients who come to you. And what are some of those, in addition to what Risha has mentioned? How do you respond to them or make suggestions?
Yes. So I appreciate everything that Risha said, because as she was typing or as she was talking, I'm like taking notes, right? It's like it is the sleep component, it is the stress management, and it's the insulin, it's the endocrine disruptors. So all the things in our environment. And so again, I think this just goes back to kind of what we started with, where when we're looking at it, whether it's for men, women, the general population, or whatever, we have to be careful not to just want to zero in and focus on one aspect, right? So it's like, even just in what she's saying, there's the stress, there's the sleep, there's the mind management, right? So we're learning so much more about how important what's happening in your brain, in your mind, is in terms of affecting your overall body. Because your brain, your body doesn't know if you experienced a traumatic experience or had something happen. If you keep reliving that and just ruminating on that, your body experiences that as if it's happening in real time again and again and again. So then that's just compounding the stress on the body. And then you have the stress of being late, which, it's like we've all been there. So it's just all of those different things. And then, the insulin sensitivity, I believe that's very strongly correlated to your stress as well. So it's like, if you're somebody that's high stress all the time, whether from circumstances or the stress that you're creating in your mind, then all of these things just start to compound on top of each other. So I think I appreciated what Dr. Santosh said earlier about the body image aspect. So I think that there is something to be said about healing the relationship that you have to your body. And then, like Risha said, it's connecting to your body. I think, especially as women, we are not taught to be connected to our body, right? We're taught that there's an ideal of what we should look like, what our body should look like, or that we should, be this certain image. And I'm not saying that men don't have this as well, but just speaking from a woman's perspective, it was like, I needed to look a certain way. I needed to be a certain way as a mom, as a wife, as, a Christian woman. I needed to kind of present in a certain way, and that does everything except connect you to yourself, because you're out there trying to fit all of these expectations, all of these standards. And so I think that's where really that mindfulness component comes into it. It's like, well, who am I? Who do I want to be? Like, what are the things that kind of come naturally to me? And then again, it is the food. So how does this food interact with my body? Do I notice some symptoms that sort of come up with that? And don't ignore those. Like, I think it's all of those things, but I think it definitely does start with kind of reconnecting to ourselves, reconnecting to our bodies, and then looking at all of these different aspects, the hormones, the behaviors, your past, right? So I like to call it your food story, your body story. So where did all of these behaviors kind of come from? The body image, all of those kinds of things. So
Very well said, Alicia. Thank you. So, Neender, I was going to come to you, and then I'm going to ask David another question. We did have registrants ask a few questions as well when they registered. So, I have those incorporated. And thank you, Dheeraj and Vinod, for your questions. So, there are running questions as well coming in our chat. So, I'm going to ask those questions also as we move a little bit forward. So, please be patient. Thank you for your patience, Vinod and Dheeraj. So, David, no, Selvan, motivation. You said till 40 years you were like completely vegetarian. That means you've never tasted, I think, meat or seafood or anything. So, tell me what motivated you to embrace these lifestyle changes, and how did you know going to meat was a healthy lifestyle change?
Yeah, so my India, like your culture determines what you eat a lot. I don't know about other countries, but India, that's a major thing. So I was born in a family which eats meat, but for some reason, my mom, for religious reasons, she didn't eat meat, and she also raised me like without eating meat, and she showed me all the animals near like the butcher shops and everything, and from look at this goat, it looks so pitiable, and you want to eat this. So like I thought, I mean, why do you want to kill and eat innocent poor thing? So then I was a vegetarian for like first 40 years of my life. So my dad became a diabetic when I was like in my teens. So in India at the time there was no major awareness about diabetes. Only thing they told is if you have diabetes, you go for a walking. You go for a walk. You don't eat rice. You eat wheat. I mean, this sounds very stupid now, but that's the type of advice which people doctors used to give in those days. So my dad, I mean, he didn't know why he got diabetic, why he got diabetes. So he used to go for a walk every day, and he used to eat chapati, which is Indian bread, and then he will eat some vegetables. Which again, the first thing they told is you have diabetes, you don't eat meat. So again, he stopped. I mean, he loved meat, but he used to cut down meat a lot, and like there are some bitter gourd and other vegetables which he had to eat. So that is all folk wisdom, but that was the medical advice in those days. So my biggest scare at the time, so people said when you everybody turns 40, they'll become diabetic because that's what they were seeing. People become 40, they become diabetic. So I was sincerely believing that if I become 40, I'll become diabetic. So I was trying to eat healthy. So already I was eating vegetarian, and then like I started my exercise way early. And I try to eat healthy within the vegetarian parameters. So I'll buy the soy chunks that are sold in India for protein. I will try to avoid all the outside food and everything. And when I became 40, I got the diabetics. So like, then I thought, okay, that is a curse. Okay, everybody gets diabetic. And my dad at the time had become insulin dependent. He had to take insulin and everything. So then I started doing my research. I went to my doctor. So doctor said, don't eat meat, don't eat eggs, eat less fat. I said, doctor, I'm doing it for like first 40 years. Okay, then like walk more, eat less. And then, like that doesn't sound anything right. I mean, what more can I do? So then I started doing my research. So in bodybuilding books, I used to do weightlifting. So in bodybuilding books, there is this diet called carb cutting and carb loading. So they said you just limit your carbs to 30 grams in a day, eat like lot of butter and then eat like lot of meat. So I was completely shocked after reading it, but it's from bodybuilding nutritional book. So they don't follow the mainline advice. They simply go by what works. Somebody tries something, it works. So then like I studied more on the diet. That sounded very interesting. I studied and then I came across the keto, I came across the paleo diet. I came across the book called Good Fat, Good Calories, Bad Calories by Gary Taubes. So then I started reading more about keto and paleo, and it sounded like completely against everything that is preached by mainline science. But then, like again, I started watching a lot of nutritional documentaries. So there was this juice diet where a Australian guy called Joe, I forgot his name, but the doctor, Big Fat and Ugly, I guess that's the name of the movie. It's in Netflix. So I saw the movie and then I started a juice diet, but I couldn't even follow it for one day. Like you just had to eat fruit juices for the whole day. I mean, I gave it up and then I tried the vegan thing for a few days and then I gave it up. So out of frustration, but I kept on like this thought kept on coming to my mind. Like, this keto, this paleo. So then one day I thought, why can't I try that? So again, I had these ethical issues about killing and eating animals. So I started reading more about it. I haven't given a second thought about it. Then I realized like life survives by eating life. You eat life. Then there are a lot of books on ethicality of animal. Again, I don't want to go very deeply into it, but I got convinced. I got convinced that like everything eats other animals. Like lion eats deer, so everything eats the other animals to survive, and as long as you kill the animal in an ethical way, humane way, I mean that's the best you can do in the world. So, like, what are you going to do if God created you an omnivore? Humans are omnivore, so we are not a herbivore. So when God created you an omnivore, then you be an omnivore. So you can't rebel against nature. So then, like, I convinced myself with some reason, and then I started my paleo diet. So before that, I was pre-diabetic. I had a pre-hypertension, and then like within 3 months, everything went away. Pre-diabetes disappeared, my pre-hypertension disappeared, and then like I started writing about it in Facebook. I started my diet group in Facebook. So yeah, 10 years I'm following it. So this is my short foray into omnivore diet.
So how was it? How was your blood sugar and all the other levels? Did you say it went down?
It went down. Yes, now I'm completely normal.
Wow, wow. Okay, good, good, good. I'm seeing the opposite way. Usually people turn from meatarian to a vegetarian. So I'm hearing a completely opposite story. Good to know, Selvin.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean both are true because when you say when people go from meat to vegan, they mostly go from processed meat to like healthy eating in terms of vegetables. So yes, any diet will give you like a feeling of being healthy. But I think the question is what is sustainable in the long run, and like what is a nutritionally adequate diet? It's
Mhm.
just not just losing calories or losing weight. Are you getting the enough number of protein? Are you getting iron? Are you getting vitamin A? So none of the plant sources have vitamin A's in retinol form. So there are so many issues in a vegan diet and a vegetarian diet. I think, but anyway, so that
Okay,
answers.
good to know. David, my next question is for you. Let's talk about eating behaviors, right? So there is something called the binge eating, the nighttime eating that I do sometimes, and the unplanned, social event eating between meals or all that. But some of these, so tell us about the eating behaviors and how is it related to the weight?
Well, your eating habits, routines, and behaviors are significant to your weight. I agree with Risha that sleep is one of the most overlooked factors that people can adjust to improve their overall health. It's been proven that a person who consumes 500 calories extra a day will gain weight. In order to lose weight, you need to reduce your caloric intake by 500 calories a day for 7 days. And the other thing is, if you're sleep deprived, you'll consume an extra 500 calories the next day. That's what I was meant to say. The other thing I want to say is that they did a recent study, and based on the poll, they found that the average person will attempt 126 different diets during their lifetime. I call that dieting insanity because, as Albert Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So I advocate more for lifestyle than diet. And what I tell people is if you want to lose weight, don't go on a diet, change your diet. And everybody's different. It's based on where you live in the world geographically. Eskimos aren't going to get fresh fruits and vegetables. So it's based on where you live geographically, based on your body type. There's a lot of many different factors. The other thing is, I agree with Risha and Alicia, is the mindset. It's been done, shown through research. 80% of our thoughts are negative each day. Imagine if you turn it around, 80% of our thoughts were positive. And people berate themselves, internally. They put out negative thoughts about themselves. And so you need to change your mindset and relationship with how you look at things. So instead of saying, "Oh, I have to deprive myself. I'm not allowed to have that chocolate cake or eat at fast foods or whatever," just say, "I'm making a healthy choice. I decide not to." So you just flip it that way. Uh, and I've identified what I call 9 principles for healthy, weight loss that's maintainable, because all diets will work at some point. The problem is they're temporary, they're extreme, hard to stick with, and some of them are potentially dangerous. Uh, when people look at these 9 principles, and the first one is drink more water, they're like, "Well, I know that." Well, we all know what to do, we just don't do it. And that's where you have to get into, well, why aren't we doing it? What is it preventing us from, getting adequate sleep, eating slower, eating smaller portions? Here in the United States, what a lot of people don't realize is our portion sizes have been supersized without us realizing it. In the 1900s, the average size dinner plate was 9 inches in diameter. Today, it's 12 inches. And in most restaurants, it's 13 to 15 inches. Yet in Europe, a dinner size plate is still 9 inches. So I just tell people to use a salad plate to make the adjustment. And don't heap on the food. And there's a lot of different things that go into that. Um, again, when you eat is important. I usually tell people to stop eating 3 hours before they go to bed. Some people have a hard and fast rule: don't eat after 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, but everybody has different schedules. And some people work in the evening shift. Some have different, times when they're off. So if you stop eating about 3 hours before you go to bed and wait 12 to 14 hours. So if you stop eating at 7 o'clock and you go to bed at 10 o'clock, and your first meal, which is breakfast, means break the fast, is at 9 o'clock. That's a 14-hour um, time period where you're not eating. That's actually what they consider intermittent fasting. And there's many different types of intermittent fasting. So there's things that people are doing without realizing it. Um, the mindset is more important.
Very well said. I keep hearing the mindset, and each one's body is different. They have to decide what's the best, and there's no set rule to do this or that. But I do want to go to Santi, but I'll give a quick 10 seconds rebuttal for or seconds for Risha and Alicia. Alicia, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think one of the things to think about with the dieting stuff is I like to call it the diet mentality. So it's the I'm going to do this for a short period of time, and then we revert back to the old behaviors, which also kind of bleeds into looking at dieting as either a noun, so it's like a thing, right? It's a style of eating, like Selvin with the paleo or the vegetarian, versus dieting as a verb, which is what David was alluding to. Is the restrictive? It's that I can't have this and whatever. The one thing that I will kind of push back on a little bit, though, is that it's not just the calories in, calories out. I mean, definitely that plays a part in it, but for a lot of women, they're eating 1,500 calories a day, 1,300 calories a day because they've been told to just keep eating less and move more so that they can create more of a deficit. And that's actually causing more harm because that's stressing the body, right? So it's signaling starvation, it's messing with the hormones. So I do think we kind of need to move away from calories in versus calories out and really look at what the source of the calories are. And then just to be aware for women and men, because David kind of mentioned intermittent fasting, as with most diets or most weight loss protocols, it's important to know the differences of how that's going to impact women's bodies versus men. So women do have a slightly different recommendation when it comes to intermittent fasting. The longer they go, not necessarily better. Again, that's stress on the body, so it could have the adverse effect. And then I think just knowing that when we're out there reading research on diets and things like that, knowing who were the participants that they were studying. A majority of them are men, or it's women that are postmenopausal. So your body, if you're a woman that is still menstruating, is not going to respond the same way. So I think as an expert or even as a consumer, when you're out there reading the research and it says keto works for blah, 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 well, who did it work for? Does it work for a woman in her 30s that's highly active? So it's like I think we really have to be careful about just taking everything at face value and really look at, okay, if I'm a woman in my mid 30s still menstruating, is that who the research was done on? And if not, then I need to look for research that really reflects my body as best as I can, to make sure that I'm doing the things that are going to work actually for my body.
Well said and point well taken. Risha, please go ahead.
Yeah, so adding to what all great things David said, the two things I'd like to mention. We're talking about human behavior, eating behaviors. A lot of times when we are binging at night or in between meals, it has a lot to do with how our blood sugar fluctuates. So the amount of protein portions we are consuming, the right kind of protein we are consuming, plays a part, and it has been seen in a lot of people that when you correct that, those behaviors actually go away. You stop craving for things. And the other thing I wanted to mention was that, about the plate sizing. This is something very interesting I noticed in Singapore. If you eat in a traditional Chinese restaurant, be it a hawker center or, Michelin star restaurant, the portion sizes are very small. So it's kind of, they are subliminally messaging that, this is like a one person meal. Whereas when I went to an Indian restaurant there, they were serving mountains of rice. So this was a stark difference between the amount of food that was served. I mean, not judging any cultural or, any person for their personal choices of how much they want to eat. But I think portion control has a lot to do with how the food is served as well. It sends a message to our brain that in a healthy way, this is how much you should be eating in one go. So this is something very important to notice when you think about diets, is that how much of it is like people overeat on healthy stuff thinking that it's healthy, and then again they say they are not losing weight. So again, this is the same problem. You have to control the portions as well.
Very
So
well
this
said,
is
Risha. I've been to Singapore many years ago. My sister lives there. And Alicia, you would be surprised. That's one country that I ask everyone to visit, India and Singapore. Maybe we should be their tourist spot from anywhere they go. So at 3 a.m. they are eating. At 7 p.m. they are eating. At 3 p.m. they are eating. They're eating the whole day. and they're still slim and fit. Again, I don't want to judge based on how they look, but I was just surprised, just easygoing. There was no mechanical stress, and I liked public transportation was cool. I liked Singapore, and I would love to understand more research on how the happiness factor over there versus other countries. But Santi, let me come back to you. Sorry, we had to make you wait. Let's talk about mood disorders and addictive disorders such as alcohol and drug use or smoking, right? Depression, anxiety. Usually, people say people on depression or antidepressants are usually gaining weight. It's a metaphor out there. So, or people with other mood disorders. Or so, tell us something about that. How is it related to weight gain? But also, please tell us what are these? What are the organs that are mainly involved?
Yeah, thank you. So, weight gain and obesity is complex in that there are genetic and physical factors, but also there are emotional and psychological factors. And as far as emotional and psychological factors are concerned, there are lots of people, it's very well recognized. Is it a chicken and an egg situation? Are they triggers or the effects? And perhaps in many cases, they can be both. Um, as I think Alicia alluded earlier on, there can be childhood events, there can be childhood traumas, which can precipitate um, as a trigger for obesity. That can lead to impaired eating behavior. Um, and once they go into that cycle, it becomes difficult to break that cycle. And that then leads to weight gain. And once the weight gain is there that they're not able to shed, then you start having psychological effect, a consequence of how they are feeling both internally and externally. And that's where the perception of body image comes. And then, of course, depression. Depression both can be cause as well as an effect. Um, then how the family and society around treats or behaves um, someone with someone with obesity is a big factor. Um, uh, and that's one of the reasons why discussions around obesity are not only complex, as of course has been noted through the discussion today, but also it's very sensitive. And the reason it is sensitive is because of its impact on the mental well-being. So, in broad sense, um, the psychological factors can both be triggers, but also can be um, effects of obesity and weight gain. And that's where, um, yes, the ready-made diets help. Do the diets help? The answer is yes, they do help. But the question is, do they sustain? And that should be the key question. That should be the real question. Um, Shedding weight is a short-term solution, but maintaining weight and maintaining feeling well in yourself is a long-term effect, and that's something that's very difficult to achieve. And that can be achieved not by prescription medicines. There are no pills to fix that. That's with your psychological work. That's with your emotional work. Um, you may need to achieve that in short steps, but um, uh, in fact, when you do try to achieve that in small steps, it's much more sustainable than when you try to achieve it in short, quick fixes. Quick fixes are never permanent fixes.
Sure. So, Santi, do you get patients who come to your office and say, "Doc, I need to, lose weight. I've tried all the diets, whatever exists there. 2, 3 years, it hasn't worked. Can you? So, how do you respond to that? Like, does that person even need to lose weight?"
Yeah. So in my own part of the specialist work, I don't do obesity clinics, so I don't directly deal, but I do interact with patients who secondarily need to address their weight. So I'm now talking more of physical aspects rather than emotional, psychological aspects. And I do come across quite a lot of patients who are struggling with the weight, or some of the treatments that we might want to offer will have a direct titration effect, for example, dose adjustment effect based on the weight. And there are people who engage well and lose weight easily, and there are people who struggle, and that's only natural. And this is where sustained weight loss, weight loss and a sustained maintenance of the weight is more important rather than just the concept of weight loss.
Okay.
Um, sorry. So to them, one of the things I say is, yes, there's a concept of balanced diet, i.e., getting all types of nutrition. Then there is, of course, one of the big things that we forget about within the part of nutrition and diet is the water. And water helps in so many different ways. And it's interesting. My father taught me that, and I go to bed with a jug of water. First thing in the morning, I do it. I don't even bother brushing. Water goes down. That's the first thing. There you go, David. Thumbs up. um, and it genuinely helps. And I do feel that sometimes when I go away on holidays and things, and I don't have enough water overnight into morning, when I wake up in the morning, the first couple of hours, dreadful hours. And I do find that. And so water positively impact, but also the way the science of hunger works. The way your brain senses that you're not hungry is by distension of your stomach. And one of the ways to distend the stomach is put water in. Okay. So, sorry, I slightly drifted away from your original question. So, to advise my patients, one of the things I say is use a SMART strategy. And again, it's a very simplistic approach, but it is an approach that hopefully should work for many people. And just as you were speaking earlier on, and I was trying to jot down some pointers of how I might advise them. So, SMART strategies, it's an acronym for a specific. What do you want to do? I want to lose weight. That's a very broad um, uh, objective. It may mean different things to different people. I can, as a doctor, just say, okay, you need to lose weight. It just doesn't mean much. You need to have a very specific objective. Doesn't matter how big or small. Okay, I want to lose X percentage of my body, 5% of my body weight over next 10 months. It seems small, but small steps reap long-term results. I then say measurable. So you're able to measure on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, of how much weight you're losing. Not just how much weight you're losing, what positive impact it has on your physical and emotional health, and how you feel about yourself and the world around you. And then attainable. So I lose weight. Okay, I'm going to lose 50 kilograms of weight over the next year. You don't know how easy or difficult that to achieve that. Have realistic targets. Can I achieve this? It might look small, but what is more important is whether or not you're able to achieve it. And then relevant. The R in the SMART is relevant or realistic. So something that is that reflects to your needs. What is it that you want to achieve? And Alicia was telling earlier on, what do I want to get out of it? What do I want to be? What is it that I want to achieve? She referenced to being a good Christian mother. What is it? It may be being a example, being a model to people around me, or it may be, no, I want to feel physically healthy, or I have got this health condition, and this particular health condition is going to get better if I lose weight, or I need an operation. The risks of an operation and anesthetic are significantly high with the body weight that I have. But if I lose weight, the chances of me getting this operation, but more importantly, chance of undergoing this operation without any complication, are much, much better. So make it relevant to your needs. And then time time attained. So the T in the SMART is, you need to have a time frame of when you want to achieve this. I want to lose 50 kilograms of weight in the next 4 weeks. That's completely unrealistic. So you need to have small time frames. What do I want to achieve in a week? What do I want to achieve in a month? Where do I want to be in 1 year's time? So And we come across this every 31st of January. We've got an idea of what we want to do on the 1st of January. I make plans every 1st of January that I'm going to take homemade food every day for my lunch. I do that for the first 5 days of the year. And these are the problems when having short-term plans. So what I tell my patients is, doesn't matter whether it's a small change in your weight, it's fine. Have small steps, and that'll help you gain long-term gains. Big jumps, rapid results, never sustainable.
Perfect,
Sorry,
perfect.
that was a long answer.
No, it was perfect. The SMART goals, we always do it in business, so definitely it will be used for our personal, health as well. So, Alicia, I know you have your hands raised, but quickly, I saw David. I don't know, might be you've seen in Hollywood movies. I always see it in Bollywood and Indian movies where, the hero or the heroine have like put on weight, and in the next movie within 6 months they've like complete, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did that happen? So whatever Santosh said doesn't apply to them, obviously. so, so I'm always wondering, is it their tough coaches, who the diet coaches or the fitness coaches that are pushing them around? But anyway, that's a different question for a different time. Alicia, please go ahead.
Well, just to kind of back off of a little bit of what Santosh said, there's definitely, I think, some interesting findings in the sense of environmental toxins and things like that in cleaning, cleaning agents and those kinds of things that can contribute to obesity, as well as the importance of what decisions or what your mom's health was like when she was pregnant with you. So I think, and I think that Santosh was also kind of talking about this, where because our societies have kind of turned obesity into something that is stigmatized as being somebody's fault because they're lazy, because they're not working out enough, because they're overeating all the time. If you're somebody who's not doing those things and you've just kind of naturally always been a little bit heavier, or you've always kind of gained weight really easily, it could be to factors that are completely outside of your control. That is that psychological, that emotional and mental damage that definitely that impact has. So I think working on kind of destigmatizing obesity in the sense of like, we're not trying to blame somebody for doing something, but it's like, are you, the things that are within your ability to change, things that you can be personally responsible for, are you taking responsibility for those things? And then if you're doing all of the quote unquote right things and you're still struggling with obesity, what other things do we need to look at? What other things are happening inside your body that we're not addressing? And then I think it's also important to define obesity. It's like, are we just looking at obesity back to the BMI chart, or are we looking at obesity as the result of what's happening inside the body, inside the systems, right? I've heard it said that obesity is the red herring. It's the symptom of other things that are happening that are probably unseen, things that we can't see happening in your body, happening in your lifestyle. So I think, again, it's like it would be a better use of our time to not get so hung up on the number, the BMI, the scale, the whatever, and let's really look at like what's happening inside your life. And then definitely those small incremental changes. They say it's healthy to lose up to 2 pounds of weight a week, but it's more sustainable to lose maybe a half a pound a week, or maybe you don't lose any weight for a while, but you're just working on kind of making some of these changes. And then as you start to get healthier mentally, physically, emotionally, then those other things, then the weight just kind of does start to fall off. So I think too, it's like, don't be in a hurry to kind of get to the goal, which is kind of what Santosh was also saying. It's like, just buckle in for the long haul. What are the smallest, easiest changes that you could make to your lifestyle, and just work on doing those things consistently over time. So
Very well said. So, Sanjay, I know you have your hands raised. Please go ahead, quick 10 seconds, and then I want to go to David and Selwyn.
My wife kindly brought me a cup of chai.
Yeah,
this
please
time.
say hi. We need the chai during our chat.
Um,
That was sweet.
Okay, no, I think Alicia's point is very well made, and obesity is what we see externally to what might be happening internally. Okay, and I see this as normally window is to look out, but this is a window to look in. So obesity is a window to what might be happening inside, and often um, we the moment we see obese person, it's already we are stigmatizing them, but there might be not just emotional, physical, or social factors or psychological factors that might be contributing to it, but also there might be genuine medical reasons for them to be putting on weight. And it doesn't matter what they do, they will struggle to shed the weight down. For example, untreated underactive thyroid, hypothyroidism. There may be genetic disorders. Patients with syndromes like Prader-Willi syndrome, congenital obesity, neurohormonal disorders. There are lots of reasons for Cushing syndrome, for example. Sorry, I don't want to use too many technical terms, but in a sense, there are lots of medical reasons. And in women, Risha mentioned earlier on the polycystic ovarian syndrome. So there are lots of medical reasons for people to put on weight. So obesity is just an external reflection of what might be happening internally. And I think the oversimplification is probably the wrong thing to do. And there is no one solution fixes all type of thing. Each individual might be different in the way they respond to a particular type of regime. And this is where it's a combination of your diet, your exercise, your emotional well-being, and how you take small steps to sustain that.
Very well said, Sandy. So, David and Selwyn, the questions for you is, I know you have a comment from the previous discussion as well, David, but my question is, like Sandy just said, there's no one solution, but the humanity looks for a quick fix solution, right? Everyone is looking for that quick fix solution. And we know diets are nothing new. Everyone has tried in some way or the other. The part is restricting the diet, followed by dysfunctional eating after that, right after that. So can you sort of elaborate on this scenario that a person is looking for diet? What is it that you recommend? Does magic diet exist? I want David to go first, and then Selwyn, please.
There is no magic diet. There's no magic pill. Unfortunately, the weight loss and food industries paid millions of dollars to psychologists and marketing marketing experts to promote their products. They'll do commercials, lose 16 to 30 pounds in a month guarantee. You could lose that much weight. It's not healthy, nor is it sustainable, as Alicia and Dr. Santos had mentioned. What I usually tell people is, uh, if you'd like to weigh, 24 to 48 pounds lighter by this time next year, most people say yes. Can you lose 2, 3, 4 pounds a month? Not a week, a month. Most people say, well, that's doable. If you do that on average, in a year, you'll be 24 to 48 pounds lighter. The problem is everybody wants it instantaneous. They want it done now. You didn't put the weight on overnight. You're not going to lose it overnight. It's how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you lose weight? 1 ounce and 1 pound at a time. The other thing is people, Santosh mentioned it with January 1st, they start going to the gym, exercising, they're going to lose weight, get healthier. And what happens is the scale doesn't move because they don't realize they're replacing fat with muscle. 5 pounds of muscle is the exact same weight as 5 pounds of fat. The difference is muscle is much more denser. So it takes up less room. And what happens is people go to gym for 2, 3 weeks, the scale's not moving. And I usually ask, well, how are your clothes fitting? And one client said, well, it's loose. And people are asking me if I'm losing weight, but the scale doesn't indicate it. Again, don't go by the scale. Go by how your clothes are feeling. Do you have more energy? Do you feel better mentally? Do you have more mental clarity? There's a lot of different factors to take into consideration. And again, diets will work on a temporary basis. As Alicia and Santos mentioned, it's whether it's sustainable or not. 90% of people who lose weight on a diet regain all of it within a year, some even more. You have to change your eating habits and your lifestyle. So when I look at a diet, I think of a sprint. There's a goal, a finish line. And when people reach that goal and cross the finish line, as Alicia said, they revert back to their old eating habits and they regain the weight. If you think of your lifestyle as a marathon, except in this marathon, there's no finish line. You just keep going like the Energizer Bunny Rabbit. And so that's what you need to look at. Just focus on not so much what you should not be eating, focus on what's healthy and what you should be eating. Again, changing your relationship with food. Most people don't look at food as fuel for your body. They think of it for socializing, for entertainment, for comfort, releasing stress. Rarely do we look at it as for survival. And that's what Alicia was saying. If we lose the weight too quickly, or do not consume enough calories, we put our bodies in starvation mode. And then the body fights like heck to keep the weight on. So a lot of different factors.
Definitely, David. Thank you so much. I like the point about changing from a negative thought instead of saying good or bad, find the common ground, changing from a negative thought to a positive thought, which I'm teaching. You'll be happy to know I'm teaching my daughter. Anytime she brings up negative, no, 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 stop. Don't say it like this. Like imagine how better it looks. And I'm learning that myself recently, and I feel more happier having I'm able to stop the negative thought and I'm like able to bring the smile and say, no, positive thought, positive thought, positive thought. It's changing my life tremendously. I'm becoming more happier. So I just want you to know, those who are listening, try it. Selvan, let's talk about the high maintenance, different high maintenance diet, right? From it can be different names, but I wouldn't be your best um, client for paleo because I stopped chicken, right? Tell me, please.
I mean, you can always start chicken, but I mean, if you're not eating chicken because of cultural reason or because
No, no, I just stopped. I haven't followed any diet so far, but what I want you to talk about is not more probably just give us a quick spill about the paleo diet and who are your typical people in the group who have like positive testimonials. What
I
are the
mean,
obstacles and challenges and positivity that you see out of this diet?
our group has nearly 600,000 people. So we have a specific group just for diabetes. So it has like more than 150,000 people. So they have posted all their medical records with HbA1c numbers, with cholesterol, with kidney, uric acid, everything. So I mean, it's publicly available group. So if anyone want to join the group, I'll certainly add you. But you can see like a lot of people have got rid of diabetes, fatty liver, so many issues. So I mean, this diet certainly works for people with high diabetes because they avoid sugar, they avoid carbohydrates. So I think that's the best solution for diabetes and fatty liver and other associated diseases.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit more? Like, what does it entail for each day? What does the diet look like?
Okay, so a typical diet would be like morning they would drink chai. So chai would be like completely with the whole milk, and in whole milk they'll add some butter, and then like with maybe half teaspoon to 1 teaspoon of sugar. So like they'll drink like 300, 300, 250 ml of chai, and along with it they'll eat 1 to 2 avocados in the morning. So lunch they'll be eating eggs, 3 to 4 eggs with some vegetables. And dinner people might be eating chicken drumsticks or chicken thighs. People who eat beef, people who eat pork. So no restrictions on meat. So those would be the typical diet in a given day. Along
No
with
rice, no rice at all.
no rice for the first 100 days. So, I mean,
Mhm.
particularly if you have diabetes, yeah, no rice. But after 100 days, like a lot of people get rid of their diabetes, everything like a lot of numbers reverses. People stop their and other pills within a week or 2 weeks because their breakfast after their post meal post prandial sugar that's similar to their fasting sugar. So they don't need they get rid of their medication, and then like in after 3 4 months, like after 100 days, then they can eat like some rice. So we tell them to eat one rice, I mean 1 cup of rice a day, no wheat because gluten is not good. So wheat, and then potatoes, starchy vegetables like potatoes and sweet potatoes. So one starchy item a day, but 2 meals of paleo every day. So
Okay, and these can be processed. The chicken and the meat can be processed, or should be healthy home cooked.
Mostly home cooked. I mean, you can eat like there are processed means it depends upon what you add to the chicken. So like I think Costco rotisserie chicken. So even though it is cooked, I mean it's not heavily processed and all those things. I mean people buy. I tell them to buy the Costco sausages. There are chicken sausages which are like minimally processed. So, but mostly people eat home cooked meals.
Okay, and so I also asked about like any some people are not very disciplined, right? So to go without rice as a South Indian, for me to go without rice for 100 days is like I don't know if I want to do it. So how so they get disciplined because they already are coming with the comorbidity like diabetes?
Yeah, so again, perfect is the enemy of the good. So you don't need to be perfect. Nobody needs to be perfect. So what you can do is you can reduce the quantity of rice. So if you're eating, like for example, anyone can eat the breakfast without the rice. You don't need rice for breakfast. So cup of milk, eggs, or avocados, those are very simple. You won't even know you are dieting. And for lunch, you can take some rice. So dinner, like you can eat some rice if you want, but again, keep the quantity less. So like Indian rice, I mean, they ate three whole servings of rice in a meal. So don't do that. Just eat like keep the portion sizes low when it comes to rice. But there is no restriction on the quantity of meat or the quantity of vegetables. I mean, not starchy vegetables, but like nobody got obese by eating carrots, or nobody got obese by eating lettuce. So you can eat it as much as possible. So that should be okay.
Okay. Can you tell any specific one person you remember out of following the paleo diet and who came with you with like high success and much energy, high energy level and happiness, and they've reduced and they achieved their goal?
A lot of people are there. So, like for example, there is a person called Harish. He's from New Jersey. So Harish he went to his doctor for a diabetes checkup. His HbA1c was 13. So his doctor told him like you have to be on insulin, you have to get the medication. So then he started like he called me the next week. He was aware of paleo, but he called me and the next day, and then like he started the paleo diet. So his doctor is his relative, or maybe he knows him on a personal level, Indian doctor. So she called him after a week and then yelled at him, "Why didn't you pick up the medication? Because we know you didn't pick up the medication, so why you didn't pick up?" He said he's doing the diet. So doctor said, "You're going to die, so don't come to me." And then she yelled and she kept the phone. So after 3 months, he again went to a checkup. So he went to medical checkup and he gave his blood. So the lab called him the next day. They said, we think you had some mistake. We want to take the sample again, because they checked his blood work and then his HbA1c was 5.8 in 3 months. So they thought the samples must have been switched or something. So he went again, gave his blood, and then like it was the same. So then like he said, the doctor called him and asked him like, "What are you doing? You tell me what you're doing in 3 months." So then there are a lot of cases like that. We have a group called the Paleo Change in My Life. So a lot of people have posted testimonial, like people who had severe cases of fatty liver. So we have one person, Manoj Vijay Kumar, like he was 125 kilograms. He had like severe uric acid issues. So he's now like 85 kilos. So he's lifting weights. He's become very healthy. He's available in Facebook. There are a lot of cases like that. So
Good looks like a person's determination also comes to a level, and especially if they're coming with a comorbidity, they want to make sure they're not taking any, you know, medications and putting chemical
yes,
inside.
particularly if you come with HbA1c 9 and 10, I mean, we can say diets don't work, but if you come with HbA1c and like a fatty liver, which can turn into cirrhosis, then you have to be on a diet. So, like, I mean,
Sure.
whatever you say, like, I can't be on diet, it doesn't matter. Either you have to be on diet or you have to be on medication, insulin dependent. So that's the choice before us. But if
Yep.
you, the earlier you start, I mean, yes, you can be more relaxed and everything. But the later you come into it, the more strict it has to be.
Sure. Thank you so much, Risha. Thank you for your patience. Risha, let's talk. I know you had your hands raised, so please, I'll let you go with your comments and then ask the question.
Yes. So just adding to a little bit on the paleo diet, my own personal experience. So I have a 3-year-old son, and I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes, borderline, at about 7 months plus in my pregnancy, and the doctor was actually kind enough to tell me that either you manage it through your diet or I have to give you pills. So thanks to my experience, I actually managed it very successfully with a combination of paleo and keto.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Very
And
good.
I
Thank
tell
you.
this to, yes. Great work, Selvan. Really, I mean,
Thanks.
uh, I was very tense because obviously I was doing it for the first time on myself at a time like that, and so it was a challenge, And doctors are become the worst of patients when it comes to them. So we have all our inhibitions coming and all the worst case complications coming to the mind when you are treating yourself or your family. So, but that time passed and everything went well and smoothly. And I mean, really, paleo keto combination was something that I followed. It was not traditional paleo as such, but it worked. It
Very
works,
well
yes.
said. Yeah. Just go ahead,
If
Selvan.
you can add one more point, like there are more than 1,000 medical doctors in our group who follow the diet and then who recommend it to their patients. In
Wow.
particular, there is a hospital in Pollachi in Tamil Nadu, so which is like a fertility clinic. So people come there to like in to get artificially inseminated and pregnant. So they're like they all are like there are a lot of cases of gestational diabetes. So as Risha mentioned, so there was this particular lady who had a high gestational diabetes. She was in her 40. So the doctor advocated a paleo diet to her, Dr. Sumati Raja. So she like they had during her entire pregnancy, she was on paleo. She never touched any rice or any wheat. So she had a very healthy baby, just born without any grains. So
Wow, very good to know some of the positive testimonials. So, Risha, let's talk about the food environments, right? So, we can certainly know there's weight loss because it's only to a certain period, and then there's weight gain. You gain all the weight that you had sort of restricted because you're not following the diet anymore. But the environment, like Alicia said earlier, the hyper palatable foods you like, they make sure they do the marketing and they make sure that you want another Coke, you want another French fries, you want another burger. So that's why they make it like that. They do it all with their marketing and whatever happens within their system, the food industry system. But I would like to know more about how does environment fit into what you are practicing, because you're practicing as an Ayurvedic physician, and I know there is Vata, Pitta, Kapha. So if you can quickly touch base on that, and how do you recommend to your patients about these three ways of how what the patient is eligible for?
Yeah. So if I roughly talk about the pathology of obesity according to Ayurveda, it is related to overeating. So as we become more accustomed to eating more and more food, our Agni, the main digestive fire, becomes more and more aggravated, and it asks for more food. So it's like, when you compare to the modern concept, like if you keep eating more and more portions, your stomach size increases, and then you will not feel satisfied with smaller portions anymore. So discipline plays a part, but I think it also has a lot to do with why all that eating happened in the first place. Were you stressed? Were you going through a rough period in your life, or is it genetically influenced? Some hormonal imbalance, thyroid, PCOD, or anything else, insulin sensitivity going on in the background. So again, Ayurveda is very, very holistic when it comes to the management of weight loss. So you have to obviously control your portions. There is a lot of strict regimens that you have to follow when it comes to losing weight. And Ayurveda also is an advocate of gluten-free diet when it comes to losing weight. A lot of people don't agree with it, but there is ample evidence if you go back to the books that you're supposed to cut down wheat from your diet. Wheat is supposed to be fattening, or it's like nourishing to the body. So somebody who wants to get rid of the excess fat tissue has to get rid of wheat from their diet. And uh, again, there is when Ayurveda was written, 5,000 years ago, it has come from gods and all of this. When if you go to the history of it, there was no packaged food at that time. There was no junk food at that time. So if we talk about food marketing and the stuff about how they tempt you to eat food, they are making like sodas, diet soda, all of that. This is where reading food labels and knowing more about how to read those food labels comes into the picture. Once you start reading it, like if I look at a diet soda and I know, I mean, I know people who have been on diet soda for like 3 times a day, and in 20 years of a lifespan, they were not able to get rid of aspartame from their blood. That's how much of the shelf life or the half life it has in our body. So that's how harmful these kind of packaged foods with these kind of ingredients are in our body. So the thing is, once people become aware of the things that are being put in these things and how harmful they are, you can actually then understand why you should not be eating or drinking these things, and it becomes easier to make yourself understand, or control your default modes of jumping to your comfort food, because it is not going to help. So awareness about why you should not be eating a certain food is important. That is how I think it's one of the first steps to controlling your cravings. Or and the other part obviously is why those cravings are happening a lot of times. It's the protein part that is missing from their diet, or it's not insufficient amounts, that because of which the insulin spikes, and then there is craving for more food and craving for sweet stuff comes into the picture.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you, Risha, for giving us some more information about Ayurveda and the reasons it's prescribed such a way. So, Alicia, quick comments, and then David, quick comments, please.
Well, yeah, just to kind of elaborate a little bit more on the whole processed food thing, or the stuff that, like you said, Nazira, is highly palatable. It does trigger that craving, but also, interestingly enough, our bodies don't actually really register the calories and the fat and all of that stuff coming in from processed food. It kind of bypasses that. Hence why it's so easy to just keep eating the ice cream or eating the chips or eating the whatever without ever having that sensation of being satisfied or being full. And part of that is because the body's not registering it, but then also they know exactly the right combination of sugar, fat, and salt that just keeps us going back to that. So I think that, it's like the more aware we become at the fact that food manufacturers and the food industry is playing off of our humanness, right? Whether it's the psychology or whether it's just the physiology, I think it becomes a little bit easier to want to make intentional decisions, right? Like, do I want to just do something because I can't control myself around it? Or do I want to intentionally decide to have the bowl of ice cream, or, to have the handful of chips or whatever? And then I really did appreciate what Risha said about understanding the why behind the behavior, right? It's like, I think sometimes that's lost when people start diets. It's just, let's change the behavior. But if you don't really understand why you were overeating in the first place, or you don't understand why you were eating at night, um, it, then you're kind of constantly fighting against that subconscious drive to satisfy that emotional or that mental urge. So I think that's great that you look at that stuff as well.
Definitely. Thank you, Alicia. David?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that too, is that people don't realize our food is scientifically engineered so it optimizes our cravings for fat, salt, texture, sugar, as Alicia mentioned and Risha mentioned, so it becomes addicting. So when they say, bet you can't eat just one potato chip, it's not a dare, it's a fact. They've proven Oreo cookies are more addicting than cocaine because of how it's processed. It's called the bliss point, and it's a term coined by Howard Moskowitz, who worked in the food industry for 30 years. And his job was to create optimized products for people to keep consuming them. So people need to be aware of that it's not so much the food you're eating, it's what they've done to the food that you're eating.
Definitely. So, yes, I agree. I used to work in the health promotion division, so we used to work through all those, and we read through some of the secrets of these marketing food industries and what they think behind that. They wanted to make sure the child tasted the soda, the carbonated drink before they were 7 years old. So this is the marketing that they used in order to get that person addicted. So let's go to Santi. Santi, please tell us a little bit about the bariatric surgery or weight loss surgery. Who actually goes for it, and what does it entail?
So of all the things that we've discussed in terms of the interventions, we know bariatric surgery has had a good evidence base to say that it does show positive results, both in terms of weight loss, as well as then the positive effects of that weight loss, including, for example, reversal of some of the effects of diabetes mellitus, reduction in cardiovascular and cerebrovascular disorders, but also reduction in all-cause mortality, that is, death from any of the causes. Having said that, it's not a solution that fits all. For example, or let's go back a bit more. So, if you think obesity is a global pandemic, imagine the number of us. Imagine looking at people around us, the number of people who suffers from high BMI or obesity. Sorry, I keep going back to the BMI topic, and I know Alisha and David might not like that, but let's call it. We were aware of a number of people around us with obesity, and obesity is a global pandemic, and therefore bariatric surgery cannot be afforded as a solution for everyone. Okay, that's number one. Number two, then there are patients who have got specific reasons why they're obese. There are, medical causes I alluded to earlier on. So unless you treat them and address them, they're not going to lose weight, and bariatric surgery is not going to be a solution for them. And then there are others left out with this block then who may be suitable, but even for those who are suitable, there are lots of interventions, non-surgical interventions that need to be offered and given an opportunity for the patients to work on, including some of the medications that are available out there, but also psychological engagement in weight loss process. And only after that, you would consider bariatric intervention. There are well-recognized bariatric interventions that are out there. Essentially, the principle of that is to reduce the size of the stomach that can be filled. In other words, to give a false signal to your brain that your stomach is full sooner than what it should be, or bypass the stomach and transfer the contents directly into your intestine. So there are different techniques. They're all well recognized. The volume, certainly in Britain, of patients undergoing bariatric surgery is small, but those who, in a carefully selected group of patients, the results have been positive. But the other flip side is, like any operation, surgeries do carry complications. Anesthetic complications will be there, especially in patients with high BMI. And there are patients who then suffer from some short or long-term complications or side effects related to bariatric surgery. So I wouldn't propose this as a foolproof technique for everyone. It doesn't work for everyone. It can work for a selected group of patients, and even in those who it works for, they need to be aware of potential for medium to long-term complications related to surgery.
Sure. Thank you so much, Santi. I know we have 10 more minutes to go. And Risha, is it like 11 p.m. for you there? Must be 11.
Yes, almost.
Okay, so thank you. We're almost getting done, so thank you for staying awake. Alisha, tell me, is intuitive eating, is it opposite to, we hear about that nowadays a lot, is that opposite to a diet?
Yes. And in fact, they would say that if people approached intuitive eating like they approach a diet, then you're kind of doing it wrong. So I even take some issue with some of the stuff with the intuitive eating aspect, or how it sometimes can be, I guess, interpreted as, oh, this is just that I can eat whatever I want diet whenever I want, however much I want, until my body feels satisfied. I would say that is probably not the best approach to take to that. So like I kind of shared earlier, I like to take what I call a habit-based approach while teaching mindful and intuitive nutrition, right? So it's like, let's focus on kind of those key habits of getting the veggies, getting the protein, all of these different kinds of things, make it as simple as possible. But also let's incorporate that mindfulness aspect, right? So it's like, if I do have a craving for ice cream, let's say, let me kind of pause for a minute and see, like, am I trying to have the ice cream so that I can avoid feeling stressed or feeling negative? Am I craving the ice cream for some other reason? Or is it that, you know what, actually, like, I just want some ice cream and it sounds good and I'm going to have a little bit and I'm going to be satisfied. I'm going to enjoy it. And then I'm going to move on. So I don't think that again, I think, when I'm thinking of the word diet, it's like if I'm thinking of going on a diet, it's very much this mentality of restriction, deprivation, short term, super extreme. Versus if I'm looking at like Selvin, the paleo diet, it's like if that's a lifestyle that you're truly wanting to adapt, then you're going to approach that so much differently. There's not going to be the restriction, there's not going to be the deprivation. It's not going to feel like this short-term thing that I have to give up all of these things. You're consciously making that decision. And so I think with intuitive eating, you can utilize that using any diet, whether you want it to be paleo, if you wanted to eat more keto or low carb or Mediterranean or whatever, or flexible, right? Where it's like, I'm going to eat kind of whatever I want in moderation while also being mindful and really, cluing into how my body is responding to those foods. So hopefully that kind of answered the question about intuitive eating.
Sure, definitely. I'm going to ask one question from the attendees, David or anyone else. If you can answer this, they want to know about the protein shake. Is it a healthy product, or any experiences or observations around a protein shake, consuming a protein shake?
Well, it depends on what you're using the protein shake for. And there's different type of proteins. For example, if you go to the health food store, you'll see proteins that say for muscle gain, and you'll see proteins for weight loss. So which is it? Most of the protein shakes for muscle gain use whey. Most of the protein drinks for weight loss use a plant-based protein. So it's what you're using it for. It also depends on the quality of the protein, the manufacturer who's producing it, and what's in it. So you have to read the label and do some research on the various types of proteins and what you're using it for.
Okay, sounds good. And Risha or Dr. Santi, this might be a question for you, but maybe I'll take this offline. It's a person is asking about thalassemia minor trait, and how if you have recommendations for plant-based iron supplements for thalassemia minor trait. So if that's something I would like to address via email, if that's fine. Is that okay? Okay, sounds good. Okay, so what I heard from our discussion today is sleep. Good amount of sleep is very necessary. I heard about have a jug of water when you go to sleep, and also drink water throughout the day. Early morning, Risha, I drink as soon as I get up, water with lime, lemon squeezed,
Yes.
lemon juice squeezed, and fresh
Wonderful.
lemon
Yeah.
squeezed. Yeah. Every day I started that. I think some Ayurvedic doctor told me 2 years ago, and I just kept that as a habit. And then, of course, we talked about exercise. So more than all, so it's not just diet. It's all these cofactors that has to be entailed and incorporated into your diet is what I'm hearing. There is no perfect one size fits all. There is no quick fix solution, is what I heard. But I would love to get your closing comments, David, and then Alicia, Santi, and then Risha and Selvan, please. David, please go ahead.
Well, I just like to tell people, I agree with Alicia on being flexible with what you can eat and what you shouldn't eat, depending on if you have an underlying medical condition or not. So I'm more of a flexible. I eat some chicken, some fish, some meat. I eat a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits. I like beans and lentils and oatmeal. So I just eat a small portion and I mix it up throughout the week and I have variety. And again, it's lifestyle as opposed to going on a diet. Again, if you want to improve your overall health, don't go on a diet, but change your diet and what you consume. And the most important factor is to drink more pure water. People usually ask, well, how much is enough? The minimum is 64 ounces per day, or one half of your total body weight. So if you're 200 pounds, drink 100 ounces of water. Unless, of course, you're doing a lot of physical activity or exercise, or we live in the desert near Phoenix, so I have to drink more water because of the heat.
And can you also tell us, all the way from Phoenix, Arizona, what is one strategy you use from a negative thought to getting into a positive thought?
What I learned from Oprah is what you focus on expands. So instead of focusing on I'm not able to drink a soda or eat a Hershey bar, M&Ms, which I haven't touched in over 5 years now, I focus on eating the apple, the pear, the berries, the blueberries and strawberries, the plain yogurt, things that I enjoy that are also healthy for me, and that's what I focus on.
Very well said. Thank you, David. Alicia, please.
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest things that I would just leave you all with is it's not necessarily just what you're eating, but it's how you're eating and why. So again, yes, we can pay attention to what we're eating in terms of what's on our plate, but are you eating stressed? Are you always eating on the go? Is food something that's super stressful and causes a lot of anxiety? Those things are going to impact the way that your body then processes and utilizes the nutrients that you're consuming. And then really, focusing on kind of cleaning up your relationship with food as well as your body and your weight is going to go a long way in helping you make those sustainable lifestyle changes rather than those quick fix extreme things. And I think too, it's recognizing, are you wanting to lose weight or go on a diet because you have some sense of like self-loathing or dislike and disdain? That's definitely not going to be the healthiest place to want to make changes. So again, this kind of goes back into sort of switching from that negative into a positive. And it's not even necessarily that you have to love what you see in the mirror, but it's like, can you come to a place that you have a genuine care, a genuine love for yourself, and wanting to take care of you as good as you're taking care of other people in your life?
Awesome. Thank you, Sandy.
Yeah, thank you. That's all very nicely said, Alicia and David. Thank you for that. Yeah, so I think it's a medic in me speaking at the moment. So obesity and body weight has physical causes as well as physical impacts. The prime one being sleep deprivation, which can be a cause but also can be an effect, which we didn't touch upon much during the discussions. And try to have short steps with a long-term goal, and try not to achieve too much in a short span, because then it may not be sustainable. So try and aim for sustainable goals. Enjoy your food, and but try and make it as balanced as you can, is what I'm going to say. And there's no one size fits all. Especially if you have a medical condition, then it's best that you work with your doctor and your dietitian, who will tailor the diet to your specific needs, is all that I'm going to say. But before I go, thanks everyone, and thanks Nazira for inviting me. We've had a stormy, wet, windy, snowy weather for the last 10 days, with 3 back-to-back storms. And today, as it transpired, was a beautiful, gorgeous sunny day. I sneaked a 20 minutes run this morning, and I was thinking, my goodness, how am I going to spend 2 hours on this meeting whilst there's beautiful sunshine outside? But it's really been an enjoyable 2 hours. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Santi. And let's not forget all those great restaurants or hotels we visited back in medical school 20 years ago. We never talked about diet. We just knew how to enjoy the food and the movies.
Yeah, yeah. And anyone who wants to come to Scotland, we're expecting a gorgeous summer, so you're welcome. I can't promise a healthy diet. It's going to be a rich Scottish diet and rich Scottish fluids, but you'll certainly have a good time in Scotland.
Awesome. Thank you, Santi. Go ahead, Risha, please.
Okay, so first of all, an enriching experience today with all of you, and so much insight into the different aspects of weight loss and obesity. And so this is something that I would leave you all with is you know fixing yourself. You have to really first find out what works for your body. There is no, just like there is no one size fits all. There is no one diet that fits all. So you have to really find the right combination of food, the right type of protein, right type of carbohydrates, the amount of each of one of them that works for you, without going into the nitty-gritties of each and every calorie counting, while maintaining the essence of eating, enjoying your food, enjoying the culture you are from, and enjoying respecting your body's boundaries, and you're maintaining your relationships through the way we eat together as a family. And it's so ingrained in Asian culture, Indian culture, that we eat together as a family, and we come back together from work and spend time over a dinner table. And it's all very important. So don't get caught up in too much into the nitty gritties of weight loss, that you miss out on all of these aspects. Live your life in a healthier way, and because all of these contribute to stress in your body, and that again brings the obesity back. So we have to break that loop and look at it more holistically, more positively, and without worrying too much about how fast you can lose that weight, or how fast you might gain it back if you don't do it in a certain way. So find a balance, basically.
I love it, Trisha, and of course the sleep. Sleep on time, no TV in your bedroom.
Yeah,
Great.
definitely.
Thank you. Selvan, please go ahead. Closing
Uh,
comments.
Yeah, thank you. So it was a very engaging discussion, and I didn't find like we disagreed on many topics. We all approached the same topic through different angles. So I'm very happy and like to have been part of a very informative session. So one final, it's not a piece of advice, but I think one strategy which I'm currently using is don't think of losing, but think of gaining. So if you think I should lose weight, I should stick to a diet. You are most likely you're not going to do it, but rather aim for something like think like I should become a marathoner, I should become a professional weightlifter. So I'm currently trying to become the masters uh, tournament power lifter in my city. So
Wow.
have some positive goal like that. So if you think like a sports person, if you choose an athletic any event which you were passionate when you were a kid. So I always was interested in lifting weights, so I'm doing it at this age. So choose a sport, like everyone would have played a sport. So choose a sport and try to go into that sport. So make that like your passion, and then eat like that sports. Like if you want to become a marathon, you can run a marathon at any age. The oldest person to have run the marathon is 105. The youngest is 5 years old. So there are not many biological functions that are possible at those ages. So running can be done by any people at any age. So choose a sport and then be like change your perspective towards not losing weight, but I should become an athlete. So I think that would be very helpful.
Very well said. And Selvan, relating it to everyday life, finding parking in circles near the grocery store rather than parking off and then walk to the grocery store, or take the stairs instead of the elevator. So those simple steps are very easy to take. And rather than going for high weight loss, we can also go for the small ounces every week or every month. So again, thank you so much, audience and listeners, and for your questions. As we know, we host these challenges shows every month. We are into our 5th year, so thank you for your continuing support. We always look forward to topics that you're interested in listening to. Shoot us an email, and we'll definitely incorporate. And if you're interested in becoming a panelist, email us definitely. But thank you, David, for your Sunday morning. Alicia, Sunday morning. Dr. Santi, thank you. And Selvan, definitely thank you for all the wisdom and the knowledge. And Risha, to you as well. Thank all your families for sharing your 2.5 hours of time with all of us this morning. We will send you an email for all the attendees in our list, and we'll of course have each of your information and which site to go and look for you or connect with you on LinkedIn. Yeah, thank you again. Thank you. Take care. Sleep well. Be happy. Think positive thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.